Welcome back to the channel. Well, as the title suggests, this video is about this fine piece of Chinese weaponry here. Top 56 SKS. And for the SKS aficionados out there, you will notice at least one thing that's a little bit different about this. It's got a blade bayonet instead of a spike. The last video I did with this gun, it did not have a bayonet on it. I'm not 100% sure of the timeline of ownership and whatnot of when this one came into the country, but the bayonet had been removed. Also, in the last video, I did not have a cleaning rod. I managed to pick one of those up off of eBay for pretty cheap. Got one of those. One thing about the bayonet here, you can buy spike bayonets all day long on eBay for dirt cheap. The blade bayonets that will fit a Chinese SKS, they're a little bit more expensive. A little more than double, maybe triple. So, although I got a great deal on the rifle, I had to pay up for the bayonet. But it finishes off the look of the rifle and just finishes off the rifle itself in functionality. Not that I would really go to war with this thing, although it wouldn't be the worst choice. And the last thing I had to fix on it was, when I got this rifle, it was in a Tapco stock, but it did have the nice wood stock here with some character to it. Although it's not a numbers matching stock to the gun is mostly numbers matching, not 100% though. Not really an issue for me, as most people don't collect Chinese SKSs for collector purposes. Although if they did, this being an earlier production, would be one that one would collect. But it had the receiver cover here in the rear with the scope mount stuff on it, which I'll roll in a picture here of that scope that was on it. But if you ever seen one of these with a scope, and you know the SKS ejects right here, and it ejects very well, it will ding the crap out of the bottom of your scope. Not very good. Although this one only had like a cheap scope on it anyway, but looks like a decent quality scope. So, I've put probably 300-400 rounds through this. I've not adjusted the sights one bit, and that's one thing I love about an SKS. The two that I've had in my time, this Chinese and the Yugo, sights dead on, didn't have to adjust them, and they're attack drivers. Although this one is a 1958 model, it's over 60 years old now. It has very good barrel. You can look down the barrel, just as shiny as can be. I don't think it's been shot a whole lot. And it's just a great gun. The trigger could use a little bit of work, but it is a war rifle, basically. So they're not putting match grade triggers in these things. So let's run back here. I got my steel target set up and put a few rounds through it. I can shoot the target here at 15 yards all day long, but that's not going to show you. And even back here at a little less than 100 yards, and that's not going to really show much. But the next time I'm at my buddy's house, he has very large pasture in the front yard, and we can move out to however, 200-300 yards. And we did that the other day at about 175, standing, prone, kneeling, whatever. Shots on target all day long on my half-size torso. So let's move back here. Now we've got 10 rounds loaded up here. I'll do a few shots from this distance, and then we'll zoom in a little bit so you can see the target a little better. I'm pretty confident that this microphone will be able to pick it up. We'll zoom in here. You can see the target is right about there, the white speck there. That is my half-size torso steel target. You know, in this gun, like my AKs with the iron sights, I like to, from this distance, put the hold right on where a belt buckle would be, and should hit about center mass. Shots on target all day long. So let's zoom in here. Hopefully you can see the target moving a little bit. So I did miss a couple there. Still got at least 1 or 2 rounds in. It's about 30 degrees. So here come the excuses. It's about 30 degrees. I don't have gloves on. It's a little chilly. Hands are numb. And I'm not standing on the most solid of ground back here. It's a little soupy. We've had a lot of rain. So let's go back up here to the range. We'll talk about this a little more. So as you can see here, I probably do need to adjust the sights a little bit. Some of the shots were a little high. But if this was an actual person we were trying to self-defend ourselves from, I think it would be okay. Got a few here mid-torso, one over here, and we did miss a couple. But I would venture to say those misses weren't terribly off. So when I got this gun, I knew it was a Chinese SKS. I pretty much figured that it was going to be your standard run-of-the-mill mid-60s, 70s, 80s production, whatever, that had been sitting in Cosmoline for a while. And somebody bought it, whatever. And running the serial number, this one has a 7-digit serial number, and it's got the 26 stamped in it, so factory 26. And the first number in the serial number is a 2. So, second year of production, 1958, I believe. From what I could gather, it's either 57 or 58. It's a little cloudy, but the database I looked at suggested that it was a 58. So, still a great gun. It's got a few little pits and corrosions here and there, but overall, it is a great rifle. And great shooter. So now just a little personal Tennessee Matt history with the SKS. One reason I like this rifle so much is because it does bring back good memories when I was a kid. Now, if you know, these were banned from import during the first George Bush era, I believe. So late 80s, early 90s. But even in the mid to late 90s, there were still thousands, probably millions of these in the country that hadn't been sold yet. I imagine right before the import ban, they just shipped them in like crazy. So they were still dirt cheap. I remember when I was a kid, my dad and I would take the trash off on Saturday morning and go by pawn shops, gun shops, whatever, see if they had anything interesting or cool. One pawn shop in particular, the guy had a FFL, so he always had several of these, like 10 or 20 of these laying around. I think he bought them by the crate. You could get one of these for like $69, and you could get a case of ammo to go with it for about the same price, $69, $70, $80 maybe. And looking back at those prices now, oh my God, why didn't we buy a bunch of them then? But hindsight is 20/20. I've got one now. It's a great gun, got it for a good deal, and I'll be shooting it for many, many years to come. Alright, so now we're going to do a little experiment. I'm sure it's out there, but I've not seen it. I've got my iPhone set up here, and we're going to do some slow motion video. If you've ever seen slow motion video of an AK, especially a stamped AK, you'll know that that thing flexes like crazy. Not usually an issue. So if you know about AKs, you'll know the original AK-47 was a milled gun. They're having issues with that, so they had to move to stamped until they could get the milled figured out, from what I understand. The SKS is a milled gun from day one. There may or may not be stamped versions out there, I don't know. I'm about 98% sure they were all milled, so it's a little more rigid. And it's got a 20-inch barrel. Let's switch to the iPhone footage here and see if it has any sort of flex like an AK. Unfortunately, I did not bring one of my AKs out here, but we'll see. So just reviewing the footage a little here on my phone, I'm not seeing any flex at all. Good stuff. And like I said before, I've got several guns that I will not ever sell just because of the value of them or cool factor or sentimental value. And this one kind of covers a lot of those. It's pretty cool. It's great to shoot. I don't feel terrible about shooting it. It's not, you know, some super collector thing. And I did get it from a good friend of mine for a good price. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.